I believe we are live. Yes. Welcome to Red Smoke episode 8. Tonight we have something very special to discuss. A topic that has often been requested before. Alex, but before that, will you allow me to say something very important first?
You want me to say no to that question?
I mean, now you still have the chance, to be honest. Uh, if
Go ahead.
if I would be a serious person, I would have a regular job, but but I am a serious person. So I was stumbling upon the internet, you know.
Oh,
I wasn't
randomly.
I wasn't thinking about anything bad, but I have found something. So I cannot explain it. I have to share it with not only you but anyone else who is listening. I have to get this off my chest before we even talk. See, there's a blog page where you know those 15 motivational quotes from a person blog posts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that.
And I don't know about you. I kind of like and kind of hate those sites. It's just sometimes gibberish. Most of those quotes are like meh. Uh, but I was stumbling upon an article with 50, I spell it out in words, 50 inspirational quotes from Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy fucking Fallon. You know that guy who does the late night show bullshit, right?
Yes.
I mean, think about it. Like, inspirational quotes from this guy. 50 inspirational quotes.
I
Dude,
mean,
I'm like, does this guy even is personality?
I don't know. I guess they tried really hard to find these 50 there.
You know, I'm gonna read a few out for you,
Yes, please.
and I want you to tell me if you find them inspirational. All right. So one of which I really liked was, I like being absurd, being silly. Jimmy Fallon. Another
Wow.
another another great one is, have fun is my message. Be silly. You are allowed to be silly. There's nothing wrong with it. Jimmy Fallon. Next one is also great. I'm going to North Pole to help out Santa this year. Jimmy Fallon. Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
I mean, yeah.
no, you got to hear my favorite. Uh, Sometimes I wish I had a terrible childhood so that at least I'd have an excuse. Jimmy Fallon.
That might be the stupidest quote I've ever heard. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh my god, you gotta check. Okay, last one. Okay, someone needs to be punished slower than a crippled snail. I swear to God. Check this out. Uh, don't keep reaching for the stars, because you'll just look like an idiot stretching that way for no reason. Jimmy Fallon.
Wow, that is really inspirational to not
Absolutely.
achieve anything.
What the fuck?
What the hell, man?
I mean,
I didn't
look.
even know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look. I can understand that sometimes, like, like we're talking about Elon Musk or 50 Cent or Albert Einstein. It sounds like the beginning of a good joke, man. Someone do that, please. Uh, I'm thinking about those people when it comes to inspiration or something like that. Who on the internet is looking for Jimmy Fallon inspirational quotes?
It's weird. You see these kind of inspirational quote blog posts usually are done because they work well on Google, right? So it drives traffic
Oh
to your
yeah,
blog.
yeah.
But yeah, who really types into Google Jimmy Fallon inspirational quotes? That just doesn't happen.
Oh
I,
my god.
and especially, I didn't even know he's such a killjoy, that Jimmy Fallon, that he really is like against aspirations. That's really what I get out of these quotes.
I always had the feeling I was some kind of artificial person, like an alien or some stuff. He doesn't come off to me like a real human being. There's something really fake about this guy. I cannot really put it in words.
What I never, what I really hated, not hated, but really thought weird about him is that he's this kind of, he's very unserious all the
Yes,
time.
yes, yes.
And it's not like, obviously, you don't need to be serious all the time, but he's that kind of giggly bitch. And I
Mm-hmm.
hate that in a man, if I'm being honest here.
It's like always,
And
oh, that's great, that's so cool, that's so great. I mean, come on, man, you cannot find anything great, right?
Yeah, well, apparently he doesn't at all. If I read these quotes, uh, yeah, if you read these quotes and then see how he displays himself. Not that I watched it, but I know a bunch of
Yeah.
clips. I guess YouTube clips I've seen of him. Um, yeah, if you see that, then you notice that the persona is very different from these quotes. I think
Hmm.
so. I guess he's complete fake. Not to my surprise.
I'm thinking about making a birthday present for you, like with one of those quotes, like you know, behind glass, like with nice calligraphy letters.
Oh, nice. I'm gonna put this on my desk at night so I can
Yes.
wake up to it every morning.
Oh my god. Okay, okay. Let's get some positive vibrations in here. I mean, it's red smoke after all. Uh, yeah, Alex, I talked to you before. Germany feels like a fucking fridge tonight. I don't know if the folks over there in the U.S. know about it. Uh,
Dude, it's crazy.
it's crazy, right? Alex, do you do the wintry things like skiing and stuff? Just interested.
No, not at all.
Mm,
Actually,
mm,
I've actually never went skiing in my life
mm.
ever.
Yeah, as for me, I don't like it as well. It's well, it's cold, you know. I prefer the summer activities.
Yeah, I
But
think us, the both of us, we were born in the wrong country, to be honest.
absolutely.
Especially weather-wise, because the climate over here, I really don't enjoy very much,
Mm,
to be
mm.
honest.
You know, uh, I was asking you this because you remember the stream we did with Joe Lampton a couple of weeks before, right? About Scarface,
Yes.
about Tony Montana, and I was doing a walk this evening, and I was reflecting on this talk. For some reason, I needed to think about it, and I was seeing a little kid sleigh ride, you know,
Yeah.
full on with his head into the snow. And
Nice.
I was thinking about how this
Oh, I
story
see.
would be the perfect transition, you know, like telling the story and saying, "Oh, which leads us to someone who fell into piles of white powder every night, Tony Montana." It might be a good transition for the next time.
That's a great
Yeah, a
transition.
little bit late, you know.
Yeah, but you know,
Yeah. All right.
still.
Yeah. Anyways, welcome to Red Smoke episode 8, everybody. Tonight, like I said, we have something very special to discuss. Actually, something we wanted to do many times before, and now we have the time to. Topic often requested before. But before that, a word of warning. More to us than to you guys out there. Uh, Alex and I, we have been haunted by the copyright police for many weeks now. Alex, you know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, first of all, I wanted to show movie clips during the streams, which got them taken down. Understandable, okay. Then I decided that at least I wanted to show some behind-the-scenes footage, which then got taken down as well. So today I'm going to show some behind-the-scenes photos, but this stream might get taken down again. You know, no guarantees.
This is so weird to me. I mean, behind the scenes footage, why would that be taken down?
Mm,
That's not
mm.
even from the directly from the movie, right?
Yeah,
And I guess you can find it on YouTube as well. So
that's strange. I'm not really familiar with the whole copyright stuff because there are. I mean, that's the place where I got the videos in the first place. You know, so
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like YouTube, all the people behind it, don't really know how the copyright works themselves.
Mm,
Sometimes there's really some sort of yeah feeling that this might be wrong, so they take it down.
mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. It's weird sometimes. Maybe it's also an algorithm, and there's not even a human behind that. Who knows? But it's definitely weird that behind the scenes footage would be taken down.
I just think YouTube is trying to get rat smoke off the air. To be honest,
That would make sense.
Alex, I gotta say, in a world of justice, in a fair world, we would have been not only able to play some movie scenes in the background during the stream. No, I think we would be even able to play that magnificent and elegant music during the stream. You know, the Godfather soundtrack.
Yeah, that soundtrack is
That would
great.
make the stream perfect in a world of justice, you know. So everybody at home and Alex, you and I'm gonna try this out as well, but only if you're willing to get the best experience out of it. Go get your mouse and put your finger on a mouse pad. You move it up and open up a new tab. Come on, guys, you know how to do it. And then you open up YouTube in a new tab and you look for some Godfather theme.
Wait, I'm lost.
One
What do I
hour,
do?
like the 1 hour Godfather theme edition.
Yes.
I mean, I could be wrong, but it might improve what you are about to listen to in the next 2 hours in a way you did not expect. Also, if you want to go berserk top tier level, you can even open up a second tab with some Mediterranean cicada sound effects. You know, if you're an aesthetic guy. No, seriously, pour yourself a drink of your choice and enjoy the Red Smoke take on the Godfather trilogy. And by trilogy, I mean part 1 and part 2, Alex, right? Do you see the same?
Yes, exactly. I think I've actually only watched the second and third one time each. The first one I watched multiple times, as you do as a good, crazy
As a
movie
good
guy.
human being, I would say, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. I definitely agree with that one. Yeah, so I don't. You might have to help me with the second one if you refer to specific scenes, because that has been a while since I watched it. But the first one is
yeah.
always a classic.
I don't even think we would have the time to discuss part 1 and part 2 like in one stream. I would also like to focus on part 1 because
Sure.
I wanted to ask you if you prefer part 1 or part 2 because like on IMDb and many people on the internet, they're like, okay, they're like equally good. Some people say part 2 is better, some people say part 1 is better. So I don't think I have to ask you. I think you prefer the first one, right?
Yes, you assessed that correctly. I'm definitely a big fan of the first.
So I didn't get that. Have you seen the third movie or?
Yes, I have, but it's been like years. So
Do you have
I don't
any?
recall too much.
Do you have any memory with it, or what do you recall with the last movie?
If I remember it correctly, it was mostly a meh experience for me.
I agree.
Yeah, so the first one just had much more emotion to me and much more impact really. So the third one was sort of it was okay, I guess.
I agree. I mean, look, Alex, I don't like it if hating something becomes like trendy and cool, you know. And hating the Godfather 3 has become cool, you know. But the problem is, it is shit. Can't help it, man.
Yeah, I mean it's the same with the Matrix, for example, right? It's always someone starts this meme that something is not great about the third part of the trilogy or whatever, and then it becomes suddenly cool to hate on it and make memes about it. And I'm just like, why don't you just enjoy the other movies if that's better?
And then you cannot avoid the comment, you know which comment I'm talking about. The you either die a hero, you know how it goes.
Yeah.
that's the moment where those people come out. It's Germany's smoothest voice and the monarch architect, Mr. Self-Conquering, burster of chains of an enslaved society. Clap for the Wolfpack kids. Alex, have you read the novel from Mario Puzo, the original novel that the movie was based on?
I did not.
So I'm not gonna ask you if you are going to read it because I can recall our conversation last time. If you already seen the movie, you don't wanna read the novel.
Exactly.
So I wouldn't. I would concentrate more on the movie instead of the novel. I wouldn't say the novel is relevant for today. I just thought that it was an interesting piece of trivia to share with you and the audience before we dive in, because I have read it. But to be honest, it has took me 26 years to get a hold on one of those books. It wasn't. I read it in German, the German translation, and it is one of those books. I gotta say, I know you probably won't read it, but it's one of those books you have on your read list, even though you're not a regular reader. And when I finally had the chance, when I have finally read it, wow. I gotta say, the movie, it is very, very close to the book. The book ends about where the first movie ends as well. And
Oh, I see.
I gotta say, it is one of the most masculine, male-centric novels ever written. Worth reading.
Yeah, that would make sense if you look at the movie as well, right?
Yeah, it's. I mean, if we talk about the movie, it's so masculine, so male-centric, so
Yes.
not able to be produced in 2020, right?
Yeah, I guess that's why I like it so much.
Mm.
I mean,
It's.
yeah, it's truly. I've always, when I first watched it,
Mhm.
it was not only already at that time. I mean, it's been the first time, I guess, at least 6, 7 years when
Yeah,
I watched it,
yeah.
and even then, it was already not a time where this could have been made, and because it's so male centric, really, and so
Mm.
masculine focused, and but it's a great way of masculinity, obviously, which we will get into deeper, but this kind of display of um, yeah the brotherhood and family
Mm.
and
Mm.
what a man does and should be doing, this is truly great and completely missing in most movies these days.
Totally agree. I gotta say again before we really dig deeper into the first movie. Uh, since I've read the novel, I just can't stop praising it. I'm sorry. Puzo was or is a genuine novelist. You know that he was considered like a serious talented writer, but he went into a more commercial, like into a more public fiction. He basically took a path that was not artistically respected, which is very interesting, because Mario Puzo ironically created one of the best novel literatures of all time, you know? Because
Yeah.
I don't know if you know those kind of novels you see in the bookstores, like those alternative indie novels, like pseudo intellectual stuff, you know? And Puzo was writing stuff like that, but I believe he had like genuinely trouble with money, trouble with paying the rent, and his publisher said, "Okay, just write something for the broad audience." And that's so funny that he created one of the best novels of all time. So such a I gotta say, it's such a stylish novel, and he fills the novel with so many characters. There were there were, like I said, man only. It's a very male centric novel, probably the most male centric novel ever written. And because it's funny, but Puzo didn't really like women, as far as I know. By God,
Oh,
would this novel not be published today? By God, no.
yeah, absolutely not. But it's
Mm.
funny, that small trivia that you mentioned, that he actually didn't have or had money problems and he
Mm-hmm.
had to write something, because I always thought when especially artists are on the line with their money and they have to produce content, like
Mm-hmm.
literally are forced to it, then that usually means it won't be very good.
Mm-hmm.
And he apparently was completely different. He apparently works better under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Because
It's
that's really just interesting to see, because I am that kind of guy that if I'm really pressured to write content or do any sort of content,
mm-hmm.
that then I usually end up not liking it myself. I mean, some people still like it, but for me,
Mm-hmm.
I need to be really looking forward to doing it. Then it's more free flowing for me.
And that again reminds me of Dostoevsky, the famous Russian novelist, who also wrote the best books while he was, while he was having trouble because he was like a gambling addict.
Yes.
And in fact, The Godfather sometimes is directly referencing one of the great novels from him, the brothers Karamazov. It's a very simple story actually. You have a patriarch and four sons, and just like in The Godfather, we have in the brother Karamazov, you have one of his sons is a hothead, which would be Sonny, right? You have the
Yes.
cold, rational intellectual, which would be Michael. The third one is a sweet pie, which would be Fredo. And the fourth one is kind of a stepson, adopted, like not
Yeah.
really like from the bloodline. So, look, I don't even know where to start with all of this. Let's go through the characters. Let's start with the patriarch, with
Mm.
Don Vito Corleone. I mean, we talked about the thumbnail before, and I think it is about time to explain why I chose to do the thumbnail the way I did. Because on the thumbnail you have like this picture of Don Corleone, of Vito, and next to it it says the ideal man question mark. And the reason I did it was because we did the stream on Scarface, you know. It was like, okay, is Tony Montana a good role model? We even criticized Bruce Wayne and stuff. So would you say, what's your take on that? Would you say Don Vito Corleone, the fictional character, uh, is he the ideal man?
I actually think so, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since I've watched the movie, I have aspired to his persona and what he displays and who he is.
Mm-hmm.
Because, well, obviously I'm a big fan of a patriarchy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because well, it has worked for millions of years, but that's a topic on its own, I guess. But it's not just that he is the head of the family and is respected by virtually everybody, and
Yeah.
even commands respect sometimes by force if necessary. He's also a great family man who enjoys like raising his sons and being with his family and making it great and grow.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that is, in my opinion, completely lacking in today's society, or at least in huge parts, where the fathers are more concerned with climbing online ladders in their video games than raising their sons
Mm-hmm. I agree.
properly. That I need to add that, and
Mm-hmm.
or taking care of their relationship and like leading their wives, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really something where Don Corleone shines because he is not only running his business properly and having his business partners respect him and actually looking up to him. He's also completely in charge of his family and making it great. And this is, I mean, I know exactly some people will be like, dude, what do you mean great? His sons will die, or at least some of them. But yeah, you see, this is just something, I guess, this happens a lot if you are part of the mafia. So I don't think it's really due to how he acts. And in the end, it's a novel or a movie, so there needs to be some drama. But in the end, if you just look at him as a persona and what he does and how he lives and how he portrays himself, then I think that is absolutely a masculine role model to aspire to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what's funny is that I think it was in the novel as well, but if you remember, I mean, you said you watched the first movie like 100 times or so, and have you realized that they never actually used the word mafia in the movie?
I
It's
haven't, but that's
it's
interesting.
yeah, it was kind of I mean, who knows what shady business goes on behind a movie like that? But my theory is that the actual mafia was concerned that their image would be like kind of destroyed. So they were like, okay, just use any word, but don't just use mafia. And I like it so much that they kind of use family instead. Do you think that's a good way to describe it?
Yeah, I think so because if you think about it, any like organization is usually a family because it
Mm,
works with the people, right? Now, obviously, in newer modern days, we have these huge organizations where the family doesn't even know each other. You have these like this far distant cousins who do
mm,
something you don't know about, and this is the difference in the mafia because they're really, at least as far as I know, they really focus on the people themselves and respect and
yeah,
yeah, working together instead of just focusing on making more money for the company itself. And this is just a key difference in values and goals, really. So, and we all know that the nuclear family is really or has been the target for decades, right?
mm-hmm,
So, actually, watching this movie these days would actually be a great, yeah, fresh wind of old values into a new world. And I
I agree.
definitely think we would need these more, especially these days.
I was just thinking about that might be kind of a unconventional question, but if someone would see the thumbnail with obviously a mafia boss who is responsible for many deaths, if I don't know, like some activist on Twitter would see the thumbnail, what would you think would be an argument against that? Against Don Vito being the ideal man?
Yeah, I guess it's the same thing. They always come up that not only is he a patriarch, so he commands what other people do, so he takes away their freedom. That is usually what they come up with. And I guess that would be the first thing. I don't think most people even care, or not care, but don't focus on the killing the mafia bosses do because they know it's just a given, right?
Yeah.
And they really focus on the thing that he reduces freedom for people by being a patriarch and virtually being the king of his kingdom and ruling over other people. And I've I've talked about the patriarchy or what the patriarch is or should be at length in my on my blog. And what people don't understand is that yes, a patriarch like Don Corleone, for example, takes away freedom from his children or even his wife, for example, or other people. That is true. But there is a reason for that. And he does it because he has the best in mind for these people. And this is why, for example, it's funny that it isn't even a thing these days anymore that if you want to marry a woman, you actually have to get the sort of acknowledgement from the parents and especially
Yeah,
the
the
father.
permission, so to
The
speak.
permission,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And I know friends of mine who haven't even done that. They didn't even ask the father of the girl. They just went with her. And I was like, you see, I think this is a very important value we are missing there because I will get in trouble for this again, but we're on Red Smoke, so I guess that's fine. No, because I think this is important because men are generally more rational than women. I think this is even a fact. It's not really like my opinion. And especially with a patriarch in your family, like Don Corleone, for example, there is some sort of wedding of your future husband. And this is from a lens that a woman rarely can see just because she's a woman. She just has a different idea of what to look for in a man. She looks for love and things like that, right? And
Yeah.
he, as a man, for example, if I have a daughter at some point and she brings home a guy, a gentleman caller, so to speak, then I'm looking for things in how he can provide for her in the future. Is he actually on his mission, on his purpose, or is he just some guy playing video games achieving nothing? Because I know exactly that this will, in the end, ruin the relationship,
Yeah.
even though she might love him right now. So, in that case, I am actually reducing her freedom. Yes, absolutely. But this is with good intention. And this is what these guys usually miss when they talk bad about the patriarchy, that this isn't just to rule over people like a tyrant and enjoy the power you have. It's really just with the best in mind for everyone.
Absolutely, I agree. That's kind of like the beauty of this movie because I actually didn't want to talk about the two women in the first movie. I'm of course referring to Kay and Apollonia, but actually I want to just briefly touch that because that kind of insight, this incredible insight in the novel as well as in the movie, it captures something about man that other pieces of literature or movies don't seem to touch upon. You know, that way that Michael has seen Apollonia when he was in Sicily. You know, many people would say, well, actually, your woman is waiting for you at home. But this book captures what all men think about in that moment. You know, it's really human. It's yeah, that's you know, I would like to briefly talk about this because
Yes.
in the beginning you have Michael, and Michael is I don't know if he's engaged with Kay yet, but I like the difference between Kay and Apollonia. It shows so much about Michael. Kay, I would argue, represents what Michael thinks he wants. as a young man, while Apollonia represents what he actually needs in the world he lives in. Would you agree with that?
That was well put. Yes, I would
Thank you.
actually agree.
I mean, Michael meets Kay at college. I don't know if that's in a movie. She later becomes a teacher, like independent modern woman who provides for herself.
Yeah.
And Michael made an independent choice to fight for other people. It's something his family strongly disagrees with. We know that from the beginning. It's like, Michael, what are you doing in the military? That's not good and stuff. It's not good for the family. Uh, yeah. And Kay, I believe, is the woman for Michael during those young years of his life, when he was still a bit naive and idealistic, because she kind of helps him. But the interesting thing is the contrast, that relationship with Apollonia, and of course how he meets her and how he marries her in Sicily. Exactly what you were just saying with this, with asking the father for permission, really
Yeah.
conservative. And I think the Sicily is also a place Michael Corleone connects more deeply with his family, like when he stays there. Appreciation for all the customs. And yeah, the way Michael proposes to her in this sweet, respectful, and deeply traditional way, I think Apollonia mirrors also his mother, a traditional Sicilian woman who has this particular role as a don's wife. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Um, you mentioned many things I could start on here right now.
yeah, yeah. Just
Um,
interrupt me.
no,
That's
it's all
okay.
good.
Yeah.
It's- I'm. Where do I start? I guess the first thing is right in the beginning. You said that there are different women for him, and I think they are different because you see, back with the Spartans, for example,
Mm-hmm.
they had 30-year-old guys married to their 20-year-old women.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for this is because most guys are really not finished with their development until they are 30.
Yeah.
This is still true today, and well, it's even worse. Some guys don't finish their development until they are like 60.
Mm-hmm.
And the key part here is this, because I think many men notice this today when they turn 30, or at least close to it, that there's something else to this life. And I've noticed this myself as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then usually they also find out that the woman they are currently with just doesn't fit into this kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
And this is why back in the day they did this when and did actually marry man and woman together when both were at their prime. And for women, this is in their 20s when they are the most fertile, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for men, it is starting at 30 when they get their life together and know what they want to do, where they want to go, etc.
Yeah.
And I think this is also displayed with the Godfather there, because he then notices in Sicily that this woman is just much more, as you said, what he needs the wife to adorn, right? Because he know he will become
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
kind of guy
Yeah.
or person.
She's the right woman for the man Michael is becoming.
Exactly.
Because in the beginning he was like idealistic and I wanna save the world and stuff, like really
Yes.
like college boy thinking, and she has an understanding of uh how things are done in their culture. They share this culture, more conservative.
Yes, exactly. And this is where he not only found himself and what he wants to do in the process of growing up, but
Mm,
he also notices then that the woman he has is not exactly what he needs there, and that's why he goes out to find another one.
absolutely. And
But
also,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
I definitely agree. It's a great scene actually because it reminded me of how people just were different back then. You know the scene where he actually
mm,
asks the father and the marriage itself, the
yeah,
wedding
yeah,
rather, because I was thinking about it's the same when I watch Mad Men and it's the same when I watch The Godfather. That people just had way more class back then
oh yeah,
if you compare it to these days. And it's not just men; it's also women and how they behave and how they act and what they do really. And it's really just even talking to people, you know. And there's a basic form of respect missing, I think, these days. And this is really what is greatly displayed in these movies and
Hmm.
old shows, because the times were just different, and men and women were acting completely different, and it really shows the downfall of society.
Yeah, that's what I like about this movie so much because also I'm gonna refer to the novel as well, but it's not really relevant. I'm talking about the movie now because the movie explains so good how men relate to each other. You know,
Yes.
how relationships are forged between not only between men and women, but also between man and man. I cannot think of any better story that is suited for this topic. How how loyalty is actually forged, and Mario Puzo absolutely understood how men tick. He
Yes.
absolutely got it. The novel looks at men as they are, and you know what's funny? Many writers or many movie producers or whatever think that men are just competing about who's alpha. You know, who's alpha and who's beta. Uh, but that's what I like about The Godfather. I would say it's about staying in a circle, in a family. Would you agree?
Absolutely. It's about staying in. Yeah, I use the word tribe a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
this sort of tribalism. We have this virtually everywhere these days. And this is, I totally agree with you there. People get this wrong. It's not really about becoming the alpha, because nobody in the family tries to be Don Corleone, right?
Yeah.
They just try to be in his circle, in his tribe, in his family, and being part of that. And there are many men who just really want to be part of something great, right?
Yeah.
They don't need to be the king themselves. And as I mentioned before many times, any society or even a family, if you look at it from a smaller perspective, cannot work with purely alphas, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
only always one guy leading. It's the same with animals. In the wolf pack, there are not five alpha wolves, there's one.
Yeah.
And this means that other men must be beneath him virtually by
Mm-hmm.
design, right? But this doesn't mean that they are now beta losers. It just means that they respect the one leading,
Mm-hmm.
and they are part of the greater thing. And this is really what's important here, because most men, even today, try to be the alpha leader virtually by, well, with everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not most men, but the men are that are trying to be better. And this is a mistake. You really just want to be part of something greater. And then if you prove yourself to be good, and the current leader might leave or whatever happens, you don't know, then you can potentially take his spot. But everyone competing for the leading position there is usually a mistake. And this is what I think is greatly displayed in The Godfather, because he really is respected by everyone. And this is
Mm-hmm.
his position is set. Nobody questions it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is some sort of calm to it. Because if you think about it, if you have a family and every one of your sons or every one of your, for example, your brothers tries to take your spot, that's not really a nice place to be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So living in this nuclear family where everyone has his place and is totally fine with it and respects it and knows it's great that he does it and knows his value, this is a much nicer place to be. This is what I really enjoy about the Corleone family.
You were talking about leaders or leadership, and I know that this is also something of your brand as well, a huge part of your brand as well. Uh, and that's what I love about this movie because it does not only show a leader or I would say an ideal leader, which is Vito Corleone. It also shows what it takes to become a leader. You know, this
Oh, yes.
beautiful juxtaposition where Michael kind of starts to become the new Godfather. This character transformation aspect is actually why I enjoyed the movie so much. I was asking you which one do you consider the better one, and by the length of a fingernail, I would also say, of course, the first one is the better one by the length of a fingernail because the second one is really good. But there are three reasons. First of all, it's a style which I just like because it's dark.
Yeah.
Secondly, it's Marlon Brando as Vito Corleone. As fuck
Yes.
yeah. And thirdly, it is the character development of Michael because you don't have that in the second or by God the third movie. He's I believe actually the only character in this whole movie that changes, that has a some sort of transformation. Because everyone, Sonny is like the hot-headed guy, and that gets him
Mm.
killed in the end. By the way, spoiler talk, guys.
Yeah.
None of them really changes, but Michael is the one who has the transformation, and that's what always makes me go back to those movies. May I ask you, when was the first time you have seen The Godfather?
Oh, I think it must have been like 6 or 7 years ago, something like that.
Because I remember, I gotta be now pretty honest, all right? I remember I was probably 14 or 15 or 16, whatever. And I remember watching that movie. I fucking hated it because I was so hyped. Everyone was like, "Oh, that's the best movie ever." And I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna check it out." Every once in a while, someone died. I was like, "Okay, who was that?" You know, or the beginning, the wedding scene. I was actually bored. I was actually bored, and I was asking, when is something actually happening? And and
Yeah,
now, you know what I mean.
I can totally understand that, and I think I have referred to this in regards to the newest, or is it the newest? I don't know, Marvel Infinity War movie.
Mm.
If you compare the two movies, like, I mean, it's almost blasphemy to do that, but still,
You
um,
get into hell for comparing Godfather to
yeah,
Avengers,
yeah,
but you go ahead. You go ahead.
yeah. Let's just compare them from a movie standpoint, right? Not the story itself,
Sure,
just
sure.
movie and cinematic. And you have The Godfather, which is a very slow-paced movie, intentionally.
Yes, yes.
And I mean, it's over 3 hours long, but there's a reason for all of this because there's a lot of story and a lot of build-up in characters, right? However, in Infinity War, I think it's also 3 hours or 2.5. I don't know. It's pretty long as well. But you have like 20 different story arcs crammed into this one movie.
Mm,
And this is why it's constantly jumping from one scene to the next and from one story to the next.
yeah.
And with The Godfather, you really have this, yeah, this great build up. You can really just enjoy the the scene itself, the feeling, how these people were living there, what happened to them or what is happening to them. And as a child, obviously, this is boring, definitely, because the wedding scene,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
example, yeah, that takes way too long because there's nothing happening. But I guess you would say if you watch it now, it's actually great because you can just enjoy and, yeah, have the mood set up properly
Mm.
for this movie.
Yeah, I was like, when I was watching it, I was watching this wedding scene goes on for like 20 minutes or something, and I was like, this is the best movie of all time. I was really disappointed, but you were saying something very interesting. You were talking about build up, and when you say the word build up, and I think about the movie Godfather, there is one scene that comes through my mind, and I would say it's maybe my second favorite scene of the whole movie. The one sequence where Michael and the policeman and Salazzo are in their diner, in the pizza diner thing
Oh,
there.
yes, yes,
That's
yes.
a masterclass in suspense and build up and all this stuff. Oh my
That was a
god.
great scene, yeah, absolutely.
This is so awesome. Have you realized that? I love the fact that there are no subtitles in this scene. Though everyone is talking Sicilian or Italian, I don't know the difference, for a short amount of time.
Yeah, that actually struck me weird.
Yeah, me
When I first
too.
saw that,
Me
I was like,
too.
wait, is something wrong with like Amazon here or
Yeah,
wherever I watched it? I don't
yeah,
remember.
yeah.
Um,
And I'm not sure about that decision in general. Because reading about this now on the internet and knowing that Coppola, the director, was intentionally letting the subtitles miss in this scene so that people would be more focused on the facial expressions on Michael's face and the whole suspense stuff. But I can imagine people back then in the cinema or right now wherever they want to stream it, were all like, "Oh yeah, that's intense." But more like, well, put the fucking subtitles on. This is important now. I would be like, man, the cinema is like something broken. I'm not sure about that scene. I'm not sure about that decision. Anything else is, of course, perfection. And look, Francis Ford Coppola was at his peak, so I believe he knew what he was doing. I wouldn't question him. Who am I?
Yeah, no, I think because personally I hate watching movies with subtitles
Yes.
because it takes away. Just constantly reading, and I'm not really watching a movie, especially facial expressions, as you said, are very important to me. So I guess I
Mm.
understand this decision, but still, when you watch it first time, you sit in there like, dude, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's really confusing for a second there. But yeah, I guess it focuses more on the facial expressions. Yeah, I guess it worked, but you are still confused a bit by it.
Yeah, the problem is like in the second movie, you actually have an overkill of subtitles. There's like
Yes.
this whole sequence of the flashback sequence. I think 50% of the whole movie is like subtitled.
Yes, and for me, I always hated that when there are subtitles. And in most cases, especially if you have like foreign language, obviously you have to do it.
Hmm.
But still, I'm constantly focused on the words at the bottom, reading them, and I don't really see what's happening on the screen itself.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
this is so annoying to me.
And from that standpoint, I can understand Coppola because
Yeah.
that scene is so beautiful. You know, when we close up on Michael's face and we see the venom in his eyes, and it's just like I'm about to kill a person right now. Oh my god, I'm like shitting in my pants. It's so beautiful. Uh, like you don't put subtitles in that moment, you know. So
Yeah.
I kind of understand. Um, yeah, maybe just don't talk Sicilian at all. But anyways, that's a question for
Y-
another time.
Yeah. But there's one thing I wanted to touch on. You mentioned a
Yes.
few minutes before about the transformation of Michael, because this is really something that is very, very important. Because you know that I coach a lot of people
Yes.
on how to be more like masculine and how to embrace their dark side and
Mm-hmm.
understand themselves. And the important part is all because everyone always wants to be king, right?
Yes.
And I understand this, but if you are like a weak man with a crown, that doesn't make you king. You know, being
Nice
the
one.
king comes from who you are and what you do,
Mm-hmm.
and it mostly comes from leading yourself. Once you lead yourself properly, then you can lead other people. But
Mm-hmm.
this is something most don't understand, and this is a great transition I noticed with Michael as well in the Godfather movies, that he notices pretty quickly that the position he now gets of the Godfather and the the leader of the family is not just um, not just fun and getting all the praise and the respect.
Mm-hmm.
There is work involved in getting that, and sometimes even dirty work, which he has noticed when he went into that scene we just talked about and had to do something he didn't do before, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is very important because anyone always looks for becoming the king and getting respect from wife, kids, family, etc. But they don't understand that this comes not naturally. You have to work for that. You have to earn your respect from people. In that sense, obviously, there's a basic respect you should get from people. Yes, that's what I meant before when people were different than they are today. But to be crowned a king from other people and mostly yourself is really not just happening like that, and you don't get like a card that says you're king now. You really have to work for that, and this
Mm-hmm.
is it has usually a lot of work and sometimes even dirty work. You will have to do things you don't like, for example telling people they cannot do this and that right now, being the patriarch, which will in short term make them not like you, but long term it will help them. And this is where over time you become the king, really. And this is what many men totally mistake
Mm-hmm.
in this whole situation. And this is where I think The Godfather is actually a great movie because it displays this quite well, the transition Michael has to go through to actually become the leader of the family.
When do you? What is like your take? When did Michael's character development started?
Oh, that's a good question. Mm,
I mean, we have the inciting accident when his father is shot. You know.
Yeah, I was
Maybe.
thinking about that.
Hmm.
I think, yes, I think this might be the first step because then he is, yeah, confronted with the fact that at some point the lead of the family might be gone.
Hmm.
Maybe he knew it already before, but at least at that point when it's virtually shown to him, like visually and with the situation itself, then he understands that at some point he or any of his brothers will have to lead the family when his when Don Corleone is gone, and this is the first step, I think, where he notices, all right, maybe I'm not there yet, but at some point I have to become that sort of person to actually lead there.
Hmm.
I think this is also what Joe Lampton said, right? When we
I,
had him
ac-
on
I
in
was
the
thinking about
podcast.
the same thing. No
Yes.
shit, I was thinking about the same thing. Because actually, this is my personal favorite scene of the whole movie. I think this is where Michael's character development started. It was at the hospital,
Yes.
after he was seeing his father, and I believe this is the most brilliant scene like ever. Is when he's down at the stairs with Enzo, the baker, and
Yeah.
Enzo is shaking so badly from anxiety and stress he
Yes.
cannot light his cigarette, and then Michael takes the lighter and lights it for him, and I love how the camera just shows his facial expression because his hands are steady as a rock, and Michael realizes that in that moment. He's kind of like surprised. He's like, "Man, I'm cool right now," you know.
Yeah.
That reminded me so much of Joe Lampton's story when we were talking about when did you become a man, you know.
Yes, exactly. And actually, great you mentioned this scene with the lighter. I forgot
Mm-hmm.
about that. But that I think is definitely where he notices himself in that very moment. He's pretty much surprised by his own like reaction to this whole thing. And this is where he notices, all right, I can actually do that.
Yeah.
And whatever comes my way in the future is I can handle it. And this is also where he notices that sometimes bad things happen and he has to be the man who leads and is cool in such a situation. Because Enzo, for example, is pretty much a display of like the feminine, really. You know, if
Yes.
some bad
Yes.
things happen, they usually don't know what to do and are like shaken and are overwhelmed by their feelings. And then they need a strong force, which keeps them at bay and keeps them like relaxed and tells them what to do. And this is what Michael is in that situation. And this isn't just true for men and women, it's true for everyone you lead.
Mm.
You need to be the force that keeps them going no matter what's happening. This is what makes a great leader. He leads by example, right? And this is truly a great scene where he notices himself that he can actually do it and he will be doing it in the
Yeah.
future. And yeah, you notice it also later. I think it's not that much later when the police comes to the hospital. I think it's a few minutes later in the movie,
Yes. Yes.
and um, yeah, he has to like talk to them about this whole situation. You notice quickly that he's very calm and
Mm-hmm.
collected about this
Mm-hmm.
whole thing. He's not like phased by anything at all. And I guess he's also surprised himself there that he is like that in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Uh, Alex, if we would have to do a roadmap, like how to become a man like Michael Corleone. It's like a little bit pathetic, but hypothetically, um, would you say Michael was who he is all along? Are you born the Don, or can you become such a man? Can anyone become such a man?
Well,
Or was Michael like an exceptional person who just happened to be, I'm thinking it touches on destiny and stuff, but what's your take on that?
I personally like the take from Stefan Arnio. I don't know if you know familiar with that
I've
guy.
heard of him, yeah.
Yeah, he wrote the book Hard Times Create Strong Men,
Mm-hmm.
which is a fantastic book
Mm-hmm.
actually. And I don't know if it's even his idea or I guess he got it from someone else, but he said that all men are born as slaves. This is how we are born.
Mm-hmm.
Then we discover our power at some point. This is usually like puberty or early like 20s when you know you have power to do things.
Yeah.
But then after that you dive into some sort of abyss when you notice that A, you might have misused your power or that it really doesn't help you that much in society. And this is when you need to face your demons. And this is then when man understands that he has some sort of addictions. For example, women could be an
Hmm.
addiction, or like drugs, or video games, whatever it is. And then after he overcomes these issues, then he will later become the king. Now, there are a few steps in between as well, but it's just a general gist of it. And I think this is where Michael also is going along this way. I mean, obviously, we don't know about the slave situation,
Hmm.
but I think he faces his demons when he realizes that he's totally fine with Don Corleone being gone at some point. You know, it's not like he's looking forward to it,
Yeah.
but he understands that at some point it will happen and it will be fine. He will be able to handle it. And this is it's not like a crazy drug addict demon, but it's a demon you have in you that you are fine with people around you, people you love, being gone. You know, it's something you have to face at some point. Everyone
Yes.
has to do
Yes.
because death is just part of life, right? And I think this is important because he then becomes the king when he understands that he is fine with the situation or any situation he will be put in. And this is then what makes him the leader in the end. So I think, because you touched on destiny there, I don't think that destiny really exists in that regard,
Hmm.
especially for men. I think we are all born the same as unlimited potential. And what we do with our life then down the line is really what shapes us. Because as a boy, you can virtually be everything, right? From the firefighter to president,
Right.
except for like rare cases when you're born in the wrong country or something like that. But even then, if you really want to do it, I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor, right, from a country he's not from and a state he can't even pronounce. So technically, if you really put your like heart into it, you can really achieve anything. And this is where you become from that slave to the king in the end when you actually beat your own demons and what's holding you back, and then you can become that person if you really put your heart into it. And I think this is where Michael also notices it when he sees that he's totally fine with that, and this is what he will become in the future.
Do you think that Michael was willingly do it? You know, like, was he like embracing this life, or was he like, okay, I have to do it because no one else is able to? I mean, you have Tom Hagen, who is not part of the family, who doesn't have the blood. You know, you have Sonny, who naturally would be the leader because he was the firstborn, but he's a little bit hot headed and dies. And you have Fredo, who is basically a coward. So, do you get the feeling that Michael actually wanted to have this life?
Hmm.
Difficult
That's a
question,
good
right?
question.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah.
is. Maybe not initially, because maybe he wasn't even thinking about it, especially like growing up, because he isn't the firstborn son, you know. So
Yes.
maybe at some point he realized or was told that this is usually how it goes, or maybe it was just displayed at in how he was raised, and Sonny was usually preferred in this regard. But at some point, he definitely noticed himself that the other guys around him, like his brothers, cannot do the job. I'm sure he notices it himself
Yeah.
at some point. And this is, I think, when he learned that he has to do it at some point,
Mm.
either way. There's pretty much no other way. But I think once he actually does it, he learns to enjoy it. I think this is greatly displayed in one of the is it the ending scenes?
The
I
baptism
don't
scene or
know when
after the
he's asked by the girl, I forgot her name,
K?
if he's lying. Yes,
Yes, yes, yes. I love this scene.
yeah, it's fantastic scene. Yeah,
An
and
absolute straight up poker face. No.
yes, he's straight up lying and with a great poker face, and
Yeah.
she believes it because he's apparently fantastic at doing it. And this, I think, when he then walks back to the chair and sits down, I think this is where you see also in his expression that he truly enjoys this position now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think he sort of grows into it over time.
Yeah, I'm asking because Red Smoke is all about masculinity with pleasure, and most of the movie, I don't get the feeling that Michael enjoys it, but it's more like his duty.
Yes.
I have to do it. Um, we were talking about Bruce Wayne last week, and we were talking about what makes him such a good protagonist, such a good character. And when it comes to Michael, we were talking about him now a little bit. What do you think is his greatest weakness? What do you think he has to overcome? I mean, we were talking about like this responsibility, or because I would say it's actually that his family wanted him to be part of the mafia, to be part of the mob, and he didn't want to. Could you say that this is his greatest weakness?
Hmm. You see, I think, and this has been displayed many times in history, I think the best leaders, well, is it really the best? Nah, I guess you can't say that. But I think most good leaders were the ones who didn't want to be the leader.
Mm-hmm.
They sort of grew into it, obviously, because they were put in this
Yep.
position. But initially, they didn't want to do it. And this is important because they were not seeking the power there. And this means they are not abusing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is also exactly how this works in these families. You are pretty much born into this situation. And even though you might not want to do it, like I think Mike initially doesn't want to be, yeah, who he becomes to be, but he is born into that. And situations and environment require that he becomes that person. This is when he starts to enjoy it. But initially, I think, yeah, he didn't want to be that guy. But if this really is a weakness, it's hard to say. Um, I don't actually know of a weakness now.
Yeah, that's the whole thing about those Godfather movies. Just referring to part one and part two, especially part one. Um, this is by no means criticism, but most of the characters, except maybe Sonny, who's just an open book, you just know what's in his head because he always
Yeah.
says what he thinks. Everybody else is very, very shady. They're very
Yes.
like, especially Vito. You don't know what is in his head. You don't know what's going on in this guy's mind. He's a very shady person, and uh, I talked about this before when we met in person. How I love the cinematography of,
Yes.
of the Godfather. This is how the cinematographer was called the Prince of Darkness, and
Yes.
that's so perfectly put.
Yeah, but
Like,
I think
yeah,
yeah, sorry.
no, you go ahead.
I think this is very important for any man, and this is a lesson the listener can take from this, because I think it's the second law in Ivan Throne's The Nine Laws: concealment,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And mystery is really a big part of a man. And it's not just so women like you because they are interested and intrigued of what you are on about, what you
Yeah.
do. If they cannot really like put down who you are exactly, that's interesting to them, right? But it's also very important to your own protection
Mm-hmm.
because it's not like I'm not being paranoid here, but if people know exactly like everything about you, they know how to control you. For example, in Sonny's case, you know exactly that he's, as you said, a hothead. So if you trigger him in some way, you know exactly how he will react. He's predictable,
Yeah.
and this is especially in the mafia or in this kind of situation these people find themselves in. It's very dangerous, and the mystery part and being not completely open with everything you do, I think, is important for any man. It's not that you need to lie; it's
Mm-hmm.
just that you don't tell everything to anyone. For example, in my case, my family still doesn't know what I do online. And it's not because I'm like afraid of telling them or something. Like except for my wife obviously, but
Mm-hmm.
you know the closer family.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm afraid to tell them or something like that. It's mostly because I know that they are like still in that traditional viewpoint of society, so they wouldn't understand what I'm trying to do
Mm-hmm.
online.
Mm-hmm.
And so they will really just come up with solutions why it doesn't work and I don't need that in my life. And this is again something that they can use against me. Not like with malice in mind. They don't mean
Mhm.
ill if they say these things. They actually mean well, but it's not very helpful. And for this, for me, it was very important to not tell them these things because then we both come out better if they don't know about this. And this is also what's very important with Don Corleone, because, or any man rather, because if people are not exactly sure what you are about and what you do, that gives you a lot of like power
Yeah.
over your own life because then you are not predictable and people cannot control you easily because they don't know exactly how to trigger you. And this, I think, is very important for many men.
Yeah, it's funny because nowadays you are more or less encouraged to open up as much as possible, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean, this is another thing of this weak society
sure.
that we try to make men to be like emotionally open
Hmm.
and talk about their feelings all the time. And
Yeah.
I think this is a very bad approach.
Mm.
Not only does it repel most people because they're looking for a leader, again, most people look for, even if you're not like Don Corleone, the head of the family, just being a man makes you a leader to some people. Might be even be just your wife or your kids. You are the mentor, right? So you need to lead there. And if you are weak, I actually have a blog post called Never Show Weakness, and I stand by this.
Hmm.
I think as a man, you can never ever show weakness, and you shouldn't do it because people tell you that it's totally fine to cry, and let your emotions out and all of that.
Yeah.
And I just ask another question: what do I gain from that?
Yeah.
What is really the benefit if I do that, other than that now the people that look up to me and look for my guidance and strength, they are now confused because if I fall down crying and they are crying, then nobody leads us and we dive into chaos. And
Yes.
this is where I think the man has to be the leading force, and showing emotions or weakness rather is never helpful in any case.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
went on a little rant there
no, no, no,
again.
no. That's okay. I was just drifting apart because I'm playing like those behind the scenes photos, and I was
Oh.
just realizing. I believe it was due to the makeup, but I was talking about the cinematography, and when you watch The Godfather, I'm curious if you noticed, you never actually see Vito's eyes in the movie, or
Yeah, no,
or
I have
or
noticed that.
or barely,
Yeah.
which makes him, like, from a cinematography standpoint, much of a mystery. Like exactly what you were just talking about. We cannot understand the man if we cannot see his eyes. It's so
Yes.
beautiful. And the direct contrast to that is, of course, Sonny, the hot-headed one, and he's actually lit very bright throughout the movie. Showing that he's an open book, too open maybe. He doesn't he doesn't have this inner shadow like Michael or Vito, and I like that because Michael, if you pay attention to this, it's actually uh, I was watching this movie once just to look at the shadows. I'm
Oh,
that
nice.
I'm that crazy. And in the beginning, it's so funny because Michael in the beginning is so bright. He's so bright, like at the wedding and stuff. And even when you have this they make this family picture at the wedding, and you can see how Michael is brighter than anyone else. And later he gets darker and darker, and by the end you can see that the dark has eclipsed the light, and
Damn.
that shows this character development so brilliantly.
I just
Yeah.
love when they use like visual
Yes,
features
yes,
to display character development. That's so great.
absolutely. And yeah, and also, like, of course, Tom Hagen, the consigliere. If you notice, he is always half lit.
Yeah.
He's a split person, half Corleone and half not, half lawyer and half criminal. Beautiful, beautiful. It's just that's perfect. Which is funny because the studio Paramount, they panicked. They panicked and thought the movie was unreleasable because it was so dark.
Yeah, that's always because these studios they obviously only focus about money, right?
Mm.
And views and people watching it. They don't have this artistic soul the director has, obviously.
I
So
mean,
they don't understand this. But the funny thing, you mentioned this because this is very important. Because even if you don't realize it while watching it consciously, your subconscious definitely picks up
yes,
these little
yes.
details. this is why these movies are so great. And sometimes you can't even put your finger on why you enjoy that movie so
Mm-hmm.
much. Like consciously explain, yeah, like this and that and this scene, but why? And it's these little details that your subconscious picks up, and this is why you'll enjoy these things so much.
Absolutely. Uh, I know one of the reasons, like just a little bit of trivia, is because back in the days, the movie was released in the early 70s. Back in the days, movies tended to be bright and overlit so that they could be visible at a drive-in cinema.
Yeah,
Because at the late 60s, early 70s, drive-in cinemas were just... I don't know, have you ever been to a drive-in cinema?
I haven't.
I've been there last year, and it is really dark. I gotta say, I believe watching The Godfather in a drive-in cinema it wouldn't be much fun. I gotta say,
Yeah,
yeah,
probably not see very much there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
No, but one thing I wanted to touch on again, because you
mm,
said with the visuals you see Micah's development throughout the movie,
yes,
and many people will probably get this wrong if he goes darker, right?
hmm,
Because they immediately like connect darkness with being bad or poisoned or anything like that. And
yes,
I think it's not really the like darkness of a person itself. It's really just the mystery and the concealment he gets better
hmm,
at. He just in the beginning, just like Sunny, he's more an open book and predictable. And towards the end, when he finally takes the position and yeah indulges in these things he now has to do, you quickly realize he's now better at hiding his intentions
hmm,
and protecting
hmm,
himself from external forces and
yeah.
what they want from him or want to do to him. And this is, I think, the dark part there. It's the mystery within him, and that he knows how to yeah conceal his intentions, which is again, as I mentioned before, very important.
That's the funny thing, because the cinematographer of The Godfather, his name is Gordon Willis. He said the exact opposite of what you just said, because he said that his vision on The Godfather was based on the understanding of pure evil. That's so funny because he was actually referring to the opposite. He saw the dark cinematography as a reflection of the movie's soul. He was like,
Interesting.
yeah, yeah. The very first shot of the movie. When the movie kicks off, it's all black, and then we see Bonacera saying, "I
Yes.
believe in America." I believe, yeah. And the light is actually from above. I love that, making his head look like a skull. And the cinematographer Gordon Willis said that this introduces us to a movie that deals with harsh realities, and I like that. That's I wouldn't disagree with that. That movie focuses on the dark side of humanity. Also,
Oh yeah,
you know,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, in the end, if we're being honest here, obviously they are killers, right? They
hmm,
kill people if it doesn't fit with their own yeah intentions or their own family. And I mean, it's a mafia, right?
yeah,
They're not like they're not like the cake type of guys. They are obviously powerful, and this power is gained through yeah sometimes evil things. I'm not gonna try to say that everything the Godfather or his family does is right or correct, um, especially if he yeah presents an offer you cannot refuse, right? Um, and still, it's interesting that the cinematographer said this because maybe it's just how they viewed the mafia back then, or the view they still have. But I still think that these people are not exactly evil. But maybe I'm biased because I think that the dark traits men, yeah, have or can have are not exactly evil either if you know how to use them properly.
hmm.
So maybe that's just a nuance we're missing there.
Yeah. I was really curious about your point of view because you obviously are very much familiar with those dark traits. Basically, your job. Uh, and like I said, to get back for the very last time, I promise, to the cinematography. As I said, most scenes are split light. Like you have one,
Yes.
one one side of the face is bright and one side of the face is dark. I wouldn't say that old saying, everyone has a dark side in himself, but it's you could also interpret this as we are dealing in a yes or no world. You know, it's a very harsh world that is shown to us, and
Oh yeah.
I just love that so much. You can interpret so much. Would you say that we are living in a yes or no world,
I think
or more
that's
in a gray world?
no. I think it's actually even more true today with the
Hmm.
yes or no. You are either left or right, for example, right?
Yes.
Right wing. Even though now we have 500 million different genders, this is one thing. But it's not like you are, or like this makes gray areas. It's still you are either cisgendered or you are one of these 500 genders. So it's still yes or no. Like,
Yeah.
are you woke or not?
Hmm. Hmm.
Even though there are, I don't even know how many genders. And I think this is even more true these days. And a big part of why that is, I think, is social media, where, I mean, anyone who runs a successful social media account knows that definite statements work the best
Hmm.
when you virtually say something like it is. And even if it's not true, or whoever decides what is true, but this triggers people, right? Either they love exactly what you say there, or they hate it. But posting something that is like gray, for example, or mediocre, nobody really cares about it. This doesn't get
Yeah.
engagement. So social media amplifies this yes or no situation very, very heavily. And naturally, because everyone is on social media virtually every day,
Mm.
and this will get into people's minds, and this is how they think and how they interact and with people. And so I think we are even more in this yes or no, yeah, society these days than
Hmm.
probably back then when this movie was shot.
You know, speaking of yes or no, I was reminded of there's a very popular video essay on YouTube. I have briefly skipped through it. Very popular, millions of views already. It's called "The Path of Self-Destruction," with a picture of Don Vito Corleone.
Mm.
Do you agree? Is that a good caption?
Well, it's a caption that definitely gets him what he wants, which is views.
Yes.
So, in that regard, I would say it's definitely a great caption
Mhm.
because yeah, because it does what you want, right? It gets people to watch your clip.
Right.
Now, I don't know exactly what the clip is about. So, because I've seen many times that people put these sort of thumbnails and then the video itself is about different things,
Yeah.
or at least a different like take on it. But if you are asking about the self-destruction path of Don Corleone, I don't really think it is that. I just think he tries his best to keep his family alive, really, in the
Hmm.
situation he finds himself in. He is part of the mafia, right? Or he is the mafia, however you want to put it. And maybe he could just walk away from all of that. Maybe, but I don't think he could. And being in the situation, he has to do the things he does to keep his family, his self, his empire, and yeah, his life going. Even though he almost gets killed in the process, but I guess that's part of it. So I don't think it's self-destruction. It's really trying to, yeah, trying to survive with all means necessary, which is what Machiavellianism is, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't think that's self-destructive. But I guess it gets this guy a lot of views.
I mean, yeah. Speaking of the path of self-destruction, I mean, yeah, you can interpret the movies in that way. I'm talking about the first and the second movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You could interpret that they kind of also demonize the mafia, you know,
Oh
because
yeah.
I was reading articles and video essays where people say that you can actually see in Al Pacino's acting how Michael's soul is leaving his body. Like they can, and of course it's brilliantly acted, and I would agree with that. You know, when he hugs his brother Fredo in the second movie, and he says, "Yeah, I'll forgive you," and you can just see his soul leaving his body. That's that's so dark, but that's the beauty of this movie. The movie never points the fingers at us and says, "Well, see, that's wrong." That's what I hate about the third movie. Not only that Michael goes to a priest and cries about his last sins. That's so out of character. I don't know if you. I
Yes.
don't know if you can
Oh yeah,
remember
this
it.
scene. I
Oh my
remember
god,
now. Yeah.
that's like that's hashtag not my Michael. You know.
Yes.
I mean, what the fuck? Such a clumsy, unsatisfying way to conclude this awesome character. That's what I like. The first two movies let the audience decide, and the third movie, it's just awful.
Yeah, I hate when they do that. When they literally
Mm-hmm.
put in your mind what you have to think about this character.
Yeah,
Because I want to make this decision myself, right? And it's totally fine when other people have a different mindset about that character.
yeah,
That's, yeah, obviously, right? Different opinions. But if the movie comes up and tells me what I should think about this character, that's really annoying.
absolutely.
And it's funny you should mention this scene. I actually forgot about it, maybe intentionally. I don't know.
Oh,
But
I wish I could forget about it. Like actually.
yes. But I was reminded about this. This is really a common theme that happens a lot in movies. It was the same. I mentioned this before in Iron Man,
Hmm.
even though Marvel, like, but still,
Yeah,
Tony Stark is that kind of, the strong billionaire kind who just gets what he wants and does what he needs to do, right? So actually, I actually like the Tony Stark character itself.
hmm,
But I think it was after, I don't know, first Avengers or something, I don't remember, when he first notices that there are aliens in the world,
hmm,
then he has these panic attacks in the third movie, I think. I don't know. And I thought this is so out of character. Now, obviously, even a strong man will have, I guess, difficulties comprehending that there are aliens which can kill you at any second. That's right. But panic attacks from Tony Stark, that just didn't fit his character at all. And this is the same thing with Michael in the end. You see him being this strong, powerful character throughout all the movies, and then he falls down crying to a priest.
yeah,
It's just, yeah, you're just irritated at this because it doesn't make sense. And especially because you talked about his soul leaving his body. If that is truly the case, then he wouldn't fall down crying there. But I
yeah,
think this is what, yeah, movie studios or directors always try to do, is to give their characters some sort of, yeah, a soul either back or give them some sort of humanity by being vulnerable in some situation. And I don't think, well, maybe that's just me, but I don't want to see that in the cinema. I want to look up to that person, that he is
hmm,
the strong man at all times. You know, I know quite well that there are enough people who are vulnerable in situations. I don't want to see that in the cinema. I want to see that perfect hero type, even though I know quite well that humans are not like that, in most
hmm,
cases at
hmm.
least. But this is not what I go for in the cinema, right? And this is where I hate this sort of trying to make them more human by make them more emotional, or,
Yeah.
yeah, giving them some sort of soul back, even though we learned over two movies that he loses it, and suddenly it's all back, and it's just weird to me.
Yeah, I actually have a theory that goes a little further, and I believe we have touched upon this together in episode 6. I believe it was episode 6 when we talked about gangster movies, and of course, Godfather is
Yeah.
part of that. That it's some kind of it's some kind of rule, like an invisible rule in Hollywood, that whenever you have like a character on his way to the top, it's referring back to
Oh
the
yes.
video title. It's actually the path of self-destruction. You know, like the Wolf of Wall Street or like any other mafia movie, mafia money stuff. They always end up destroyed. They always destruct themselves. Like power is bad. It's always the same message, and that's kind of like what I believe. You know, we have like the Godfather 1 and the Godfather 2, which are pretty dark on their own. But you really had to do the third movie. You really had to assassinate the character of Michael Corleone just to show the people how bad power is, right?
Yeah, it's not just, yeah, absolutely agree. It's not just that showing people how bad power truly is.
Hmm.
It's also giving them a cop out for their life, right?
Yeah,
Because then you can say, all right, you see these people, they gained all that power and money, but they still died in the end.
yeah,
So I don't have to do anything. And I think this works as well, or works very well rather, with people, because then they don't have yeah, strive to go for power or success, fame, whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reminded of Scarface again as well, which is the exact same story, right?
Yes.
He has nothing, builds his whole empire with his own hands, really, and then in the end, he's killed. So obviously, what did he gain from it, right? And this is the whole message. I totally agree with you there that power is bad in
Yeah.
any case,
Yeah.
and it's always just a short, bright light. And the message really seems to be from Hollywood there that it's much better if you are just a small flickering candlelight all your life without touching anyone instead of being a bright beacon for a short amount of time. And this is where I, or I guess you as well, totally disagree with Hollywood.
Yeah, it's really we talked about this in an episode before, or 2 episodes before, I think, where you have a similar case with Heisenberg slash Walter White,
Oh
where
yeah.
at least okay, like he dies in the end, and he, I wouldn't say he's a winner. You can see his empire and stuff, but at least you get this little smirk of him, where he's like, I liked what I did. I had the best life. I lived like 5 lives in one life.
Yeah.
You get this little smirk. At least you get this here. Again, Godfather 3, you just get this corpse
Yes.
of,
That,
and
yeah.
that's something that pisses me off so much. That's the thing that really,
Yeah,
yeah,
because they really just did that, as you said, to get this message across that power is bad, or you shouldn't strive for these things. And especially, I guess, in the Godfather movies, it's also to tell people, oh, you shouldn't be part of a mafia or something like that. Which I mean, for most people, it's A, unachievable, and B, common sense, right?
yeah, yeah,
Even though common sense is not so common anymore, but still, uh, yeah, it's they just had to get this. It's pretty much like a disclaimer. That's what it feels like to me. So at the end, you see, it's all cool in a cool novel, but don't be that guy.
yeah. I'm just
And
waiting for Netflix to put up this disclaimers before The Godfather. I mean, like, please don't shoot like people in
yes,
real life when you watch this movie.
yes, exactly. Yeah, I guess if
Oh
society
man.
keeps developing in the direction it currently is, that you need warning labels on virtually everything, then I guess we need that.
Yeah, I really hope they're gonna do some characters in The Godfather like black people in post production, just for diversity's sake. Oh my God.
Yes, exactly. It's much like it was with that Madman episode I
Yeah,
told you before, right?
yeah,
Where they had a huge disclaimer, like a huge wall of text before the show even started about racism or the black people displayed. And they should do this in The Godfather as
yeah,
well. Like
absolutely.
the mafia is usually a organization of like lawbreakers and murderers and all of that. And please don't be that guy and just enjoy the movie, etc.
Yes.
And we don't like condone any of this and all of that bullshit. And yes, I think yeah, really, I think what they do to the characters in these situations is really the disclaimer to the regular sheep to tell them, yeah, you shouldn't be that kind of person. You shouldn't strive for power.
Hmm.
And yeah, maybe I'm just too deep into conspiracy theories again here, but I think yeah, there's an agenda that they don't want you to be that guy
Absolutely, it's pretty
to
obvious.
have
I would
this
say.
power. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. That's why. Yeah, that's another reason why at least The Godfather 1 wouldn't be made today.
Oh
At least
yes.
not the way it is, because in the end, I would say, you have the ending scene with Michael, this beautiful, this beautiful juxtaposition in the end, where we were just briefly talking about how the movie doesn't point the finger at us and lets us, get the clues on our own. I don't know if you have noticed, but anyone who is listening, in the end, when you have like the baptism scene, you have the actual Catholic baptism in the church. I think it's Michael's nephew,
I think so, yes.
which makes Michael, officially the Godfather. And at the same time, back to back, his men are killing all those characters, which makes him the mafia-like Godfather at the same
Yes.
time. So like a double Godfather at the same time. It was beautiful, and the movie doesn't tell us this; it shows us.
Yes,
And
that is what makes a great movie.
yeah, uh, and the ending scene, like one or two scenes after that, you don't get the feeling like it would be perfect if there was not even a disclaimer before a movie, but also a disclaimer after the movie. It's like, yeah, nice story, right? But don't forget, this is immoral, you know, something like that. So we were perfect for the ending of Godfather One, by the way. So Netflix, are you listening? Um, yeah, you have this perfect ending, and it's a very ambivalent ending. You don't really get the okay. Is this like a is this like a happy ending or not? I don't even know what makes a happy ending at that point. But it's just like okay, that's the way it is. Michael is the new Godfather. There's no such thing as okay, that's a bad thing or a good thing.
Yeah, but I like that actually
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
because I've told you before that I like movies that make you think, or
Yes.
at least they stay in your mind a few days later, right? And it's not just that popcorn movie that's gone immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And with an ending like this, you really have to think about if, for example, I mean, we are talking 2 hours about this movie now, and or almost,
Yeah.
and because there is just so much you can dissect there, which also is part of the ending, and you come out of this movie and you think about it, and you think about the things the people did, the characters did, what you would do maybe, how your life is unfolding, things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
this is what I truly enjoy about the movie, and especially with an ambivalent ending where you don't know what you really should think about it. This is great because it makes you think, right?
Yeah.
But again, I obviously know that making you think is not a thing people like these days. So yeah,
Yeah. I'm really trying to grasp, or I'm trying to get the secret secret recipe behind what makes The Godfather so good. And one of the things I really love about this movie is, I mean, many people consider this the greatest movie of all time. Movies, Godfather 1 and Godfather 2. Um, that movies, or especially Godfather 1, that movie didn't feel cheesy at all. It actually doesn't have any humor, as far as I can remember. There's not a single
yeah, right.
cringe-worthy moment. It is a very mature movie.
Oh yes,
This is
absolutely.
that's something that's very rare. I mean,
Yeah,
I remember,
especially these days.
yeah, I remember we were briefly talking about the Joker 2019 at
Oh God,
in the last stream, and it's like R rated, same as The Godfather. Both movies are R rated, but I can tell one of them is for like teenagers, and one of them is for mature men.
absolutely.
You
The
know, and
Joker really is for like college students who try to be idealistic, and The Godfather is for
for people who are
men living
dropping
in
out
the
of
real.
college.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, people living in the real world.
Yeah.
That's definitely a difference there.
It's I would say it's funny, but it is not funny because there's no humor in it, obviously. But yeah, there's actually I cannot think of any joke in The Godfather. There's
It is something.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know what? Thinking about it now, there's some like little touches. There, for example, in the beginning, there's this guy, Joey, who, for example, who was sitting outside practicing his speech before going in to greet Vito. He's so nervous. I don't know if you can remember at the wedding. Uh, and it's a funny thing. The actor itself was so frightened to play with the legend Marlon Brando himself that he actually kept forgetting his lines. So that's kind of like an outtake that made it into the movie. That's a little bit of humor, but it's so interesting that this movie doesn't. So many people nowadays think that okay, that's something we need in our movie. Like humor, we have to be like a little bit cheesy.
Oh yes.
And The
I mean,
Godfather is pretty stoic.
yes, exactly. And this is what I've touched on before, and I'm gonna shit on Marvel movies again there, but
Yes, you go.
yeah, because the director who made most of the Marvel movies, Kevin Feige, I don't know
Yo,
how
yeah,
he's
yeah,
pronounced.
yeah.
He said himself that I think the quote was that you build up suspension, but you always need to make the audience laugh.
Hmm.
And you can tell in the Marvel movies this is the case. It's all really just jokes all the time, and we talked about this before. They don't take themselves serious at all. which ruins the hero image, which is another thing. And see, obviously, no one has something against laughing, right, and having a joke,
Mm.
obviously. But I think, especially in this society where nobody takes anything really serious, especially their own lives, funnily enough, um, it would be much better if we had more serious movies. But it
Mm-hmm.
just isn't what people want these days. And I think the reason is really because they don't enjoy their own life very much. So they're looking for, yeah, looking for something in entertainment, as it calls, to get some fun out of it.
Yeah.
But if you enjoy your life and what you do, then you're totally fine with getting just some ideas. What and this is what the Godfather movies really are, just to think about another person's viewpoint of life, like from the mafia viewpoint,
Mm.
or just thinking again about the nuclear family and all of that. And you're not so concerned with when's the next joke finally happening, so I can, yeah, escape my bad life. So this
Yeah.
is really a huge difference there.
I briefly touched this in the beginning, like the way people actually interact with each other. It's also what I really like about the novel and what Mario Puzo wrote, that he's so aware of the human psychology as well as Dostoevsky. Like he explained things about the human psyche and how humans interact with each other. Uh, that's the thing about the characters in Puzo's novel and in the movie. They seem to be so real. I know it's Al Pacino
Yes.
and I know it's Robert Duvall and Marlon Brando. Obviously, I know they're like world famous actors, but I forget it when I watch the movies. I forget that they are actors. They seem so real, especially the characters who play Sonny. When he has like his rages, it's such a human thing. It's such a yeah. I can relate to that.
Yeah, you're right. Now that you mention it, actually, never once while watching the movies, I was thinking about the actors. I
Yes,
was really just
yes.
thinking about the characters. And yeah, that's truly great. You're right. So yeah, it's because they are like real people. They have
Mm-hmm.
real human soul to them. Yeah, you can relate to.
Yeah,
And it's not again because we talked about this before. It's not because they are made human by some stupid disclaimer at the end. It's because they have human traits.
mm-hmm.
When they are their characters and when they are played by their very great actors.
Yeah. And I gotta say, again, literature or movies that are published today, quite frankly, garbage. Uh,
Oh
don't
yeah.
deal with. I don't have the feeling they deal with real people. Like they're talking or they're dealing with an more or less with an idea of people, like fake people. I don't. I
Yeah,
don't.
I
I don't.
mean,
Like again, speaking about the Joker 2019, the characters in this movie, they seem like fake people. Like okay, like it's an interesting story, maybe something to write a novel about, but they don't seem like real people at all.
well, David, what can I say? We live in a completely fake society. You know, if you think about it, I mean, everyone puts faked images on Instagram,
Mm,
writes faked tweets about, yeah, probably a quote he wrote somewhere else, spinning with his own words,
mm,
and nobody is really himself because they are afraid what this might mean because
mm,
everyone is watching all the time. Like if you put yourself, your true self, out on social media, this is very, yeah, it can be very embarrassing, right?
yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, I had the same issue when I started out before because you notice quite well if you hear your own voice, that's not very nice
Mm,
because the voice in your head is just different than the
yeah.
one that is recorded. And I mean, this is a minor thing, but this is also some part of it because, or some part why people don't actually go out and try to achieve something because they are afraid of being judged, which is what this society does all the time. And therefore, you get people that wear masks all the time. And I'm not talking about COVID masks,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
um, which is a quite funny, uh, yeah, segue there. But anyway, the point is that people are not really who they are online or outside in the world. So if you actually make movies these days, you don't. I think especially in Hollywood, these directors they don't actually like talk to real people ever. I
Hmm.
think if you, especially in Los Angeles, for example, well, and in Hollywood, really, when you work there all your life, all the time, you don't really see real people that really tell you what they want. I mean, actors are faking all the time, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's their job. They never are really who they are, and the people around you just try to improve their career, so they try to be what you want them to be. So you never have real people around you, and like with their real flaws and issues and problems and yeah, their joy and what they really enjoy doing and all of that. Their real opinions, for example.
I mean, you
And
remember
then
me talking about Jimmy Fallon in the beginning of the stream,
yes,
and when you
exactly.
like look at snippets from his late night show, and when he has the interview part, when he talks to an actor, there is something very artificial about the conversation they have. Like it's
Yeah.
scripted, and it's just not the way humans interact with each other, right?
Yes, exactly. And this is, I still think this is the reason why podcasts like this, for example, are
Mm,
so sought out by people, like by the majority,
mm,
because this is a real conversation between people.
mm,
And it's not like staged. You don't have just 5 minutes to make your point, like on TV or on radio or wherever. In a podcast, you have 2 hours or even longer, whatever you want to do, to talk about a topic with all its nuances and details. And it
yeah.
might even be yourself, it might be a movie or some general societal issue, whatever it is, you can probably talk about it properly. Sorry.
Yeah.
And this is very important. And I think people are really looking for that because they are annoyed by this fake society, even though most of them still indulge in it themselves, obviously, with posting on Instagram.
Hmm.
But deep down, I think most people don't like this very much. And this is where they are seeking something else.
I would agree with that. Uh,
But, but obviously,
yeah.
Hollywood is far behind in that, and they still think people want all this fake shit. But yeah, I don't think so.
So, Alex, I think we are pretty much on the same road when we say that this story, like about the Godfather, uh, whether we are talking about the novel or the movie, would not be published today.
Yes.
Would you think, regardless of the time we live in, a very random question, but I would like to know your point of view. Would you think a woman would enjoy this story, this kind of story? Do you think a woman can enjoy watching The Godfather?
Well, I can tell you from experience because I've watched it once with my wife,
Mm-hmm.
the first movie, and she fell asleep. And in the end,
What?
she said she didn't like it at all.
How can
And
she say she didn't like it if she fell asleep?
yes, I
Mm.
mean, that's the thing I always get. Yeah, anyway.
That's the cardinal
Um,
sin there.
yes, exactly. I don't think this is a movie for women. I really don't think so.
Hmm.
It's not just because it mostly features men. That isn't an issue. I think the story is really not relatable for women, and the character transitions and what they go through. This is really just a man's thing.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's not really interesting for women.
yeah. It's a. I don't think that there's a shame in that to say that
No.
okay there are movies. I mean I'm not gonna watch like Desperate Housewives and stuff like that. That's like made for girls and like okay go ahead and watch this bullshit. Uh, it's okay that there are movies for men and there are movies for women.
Yeah, but this is again where you notice immediately that we live in a feminized society
Mm,
because it's totally fine to have women in shows completely and only targeted towards women.
mm,
But if you make a movie that is only targeted about men, it's obviously sexist, right?
of
And you
course.
should include women in that and all of this. So this is again where you notice the setup of this society pretty quickly.
Mm,
Because I think it's totally fine to have a completely guy movie, right? Who only
mm,
focuses on the target market being men. And we should actually have more of that. And yeah, more of the olden day masculine movies. I
mm.
mean, we too have been preaching this for weeks now, but
Amen.
yes, society looks a bit different at that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to repeat myself. You know, it's a little bit unfair of me that I always refer to the novel because you haven't read it. But just briefly, you know, modern novels. I don't read them, and you don't, of course, as well. Uh, I think there's a reason they don't want to touch upon this even more than movies. I believe novels have been corrupted even more because
You think so?
because if you pay attention, most people who choose to buy novels nowadays at the big press or the airport or the train station are women, of course.
Oh yeah.
Of course, there's still men, right? But most of the people who buy novels nowadays are women. So
No,
of
I was
course,
yeah.
yeah, sure.
No, I was thinking about because obviously in Hollywood there's this agenda, right? So the movies I thought are more like geared into a specific direction. But you're right, the book or novel reading market is
Hmm.
mostly female. So yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I remember before the virus started, I've been to a few bookstores when everything was still open, uh, and you don't see much man in there.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like
true.
you know that's maybe the little difference because if you go into a cinema, there's still I would say 50-50. Like
Yeah.
couples and men only and women only. You know that's it's really 50-50. But bookstores are like 80-90% are women. So of course the novels that are being published today are more focused on basically made for women.
Yeah,
That's why
that's
I
true.
believe the novel The Godfather would absolutely flop.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess most men these days are just busy playing video games. Um,
Yeah.
they're not very interested in reading novels. I mean, it's also because this lifestyle we live these days is just very fast paced. So, I
Hmm.
mean, in most cases, people don't actually have the time because they are busy watching Netflix and playing video games. And it's not just because they don't like reading books. I think it's just there's so much entertainment possible to get. So you choose the easy one
Yeah.
you can turn off quickly, which is Netflix or video games, instead of yeah investing like days or weeks into a novel or a book, which is another big reason why I think the society is breaking apart. But I guess that's another topic.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a pity, of course, but
Yeah, absolutely.
can't help it. Kind of.
I mean, especially as authors ourselves, right? This is very tragic
Yes.
to
Yes.
hear, but
Absolutely. Well, Alex, what do you think makes The Godfather such a good movie? We talked about so many things. Is there anything I might have missed or we might have missed? I mean, obviously, I would say it's a huge. That Francis Ford Coppola, the director, he's a talented bastard, right? But is there anything else you were thinking about? Maybe the music, or something like that, where you think, okay, that makes The Godfather 1 such a masterpiece.
well, I don't think that a great movie like that, or any very great movie, can be pinned down to one thing
Hmm.
that makes it great. It's always a combination of virtually everything. Like everything plays together, you know.
Hmm.
And this is why, for example, without the music, I still think it wouldn't be that good. And without the
Yeah.
great visuals, it wouldn't be that good. So it's all a part of the whole thing, really. But the music definitely gets a special notion, absolutely,
Hmm.
or mention rather, because it's yeah, it just sets the mood correctly for this
Hmm.
whole environment and gets you into that place. And obviously, the visuals, the fantastic acting, and the story itself, and the transformations that people go through. And what I still like, maybe the most, yeah, I guess, is the pacing of the movie.
Yeah, you
That's
just
really
talked. Yeah,
just
you just talked about this before. Now I forgot about it. I wanted to talk to you about this because you said that we live in such a fast pace society, and
yes,
maybe that's also another reason why this movie would not work nowadays
exactly.
because you need a lot of patience to get into this to deserve the payoff.
Yes, people are just not used to that these days. They're used
Mm-hmm.
to these fast-paced Marvel movies again,
Mm-hmm.
or any other movie. I don't care. They're mostly set up jumping from scene to scene. You know, if you learn someday, most of you have already learned that the the attention span is like 7 seconds, right?
Yeah,
These days
yeah.
for people online, especially. I think you even have less because you're just scrolling all the time, right? You see a tweet, next tweet. You didn't even read it properly.
Mm.
Instagram, you see an image, you just didn't even take it in, you just scroll past it. And it's the same with movies. They need to be constantly triggering your dopamine system with, I don't know, jokes or some flashy visuals or whatever it is to keep you going. And The Godfather just is not that movie. It's very, very slow paced. And this is what I like because it's such an antidote to this current society.
Yes.
And it's just so, funnily enough, these days it is a very refreshing movie because it's so different. And yeah, I mean, some people might fall asleep because they're not used to, yeah, focusing on something for more than 5 minutes. And this movie asks you to focus on one thing for 2.5 hours, or is it 3 hours? I don't quite recall.
Yeah,
And
kind of. Yeah.
so this is really something I'm missing these days, that you just take your time and really explore an idea,
Hmm.
go deeper into it, which is what we do in these podcasts, which is what The Godfather has did with that whole idea of the mafia and
Mm.
the Godfather itself as the leader of the family. And I think this is clearly missing in today's, not just movies, also in society itself.
Hmm.
Everyone is just running from A to B all the time. Nobody just reflects on what he's doing right now.
I'm really conflicted right now because I've seen the movie when I don't remember when I saw it the first time. I could be 14 or 16 or something like that. And when I watched the movie back in the days, I wasn't like ready for it. Like I said, I didn't understand. I
Yeah.
was just like what you were mentioning. I was kind of bored. I was like, okay, when's the next explosion gonna happen,
Yes.
so to speak, right? But nevertheless, I wouldn't say it's for adults only. I would say it's for kids, obviously, by God. But mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
if I would rewind my life, I would still try to make my 14, 15, 16-year-old self watch this movie for so many reasons, of course. What would you say?
I absolutely agree. I
Mm.
think it is not, well, it is not for the current teenager, I guess, because they are,
Yeah.
well, just very, very short lived and have very short attention spans.
Hmm.
But for the teenager that is on his path to adulthood, I think it's still a great movie.
Hmm.
And I think that people don't enjoy this movie very much because it's so slow paced. It's really a display of the infantile society. Because, as a kid, obviously you don't like that because you need action all the time, because you have so much energy and
Hmm.
things need to happen. This is totally understandable and it's totally fine.
Hmm.
And but you grow up at some point and you have to dive deeper into some topics. It's just part of your life, right? And this is
Absolutely.
also why watching it as a teenager, even though you didn't like it that much, it still had an impact on you.
Hmm.
And this is why it is important. So you actually get into this transition, whereas with current movies, you are kept in that state
Hmm.
that you don't actually need to think deeper about things and everything just happens all the time. And this, I think, is missing completely. And this is also why I think, of course, it's not for kids, but it's definitely for younger adults. Definitely an
I
important
would
movie.
agree. Yeah. Definitely a movie you should get your hand on as soon as possible. And again, I'm gonna say it for the last time on this stream. Uh, if you or anyone else who's listening has the opportunity to get your hands on a novel, do it. It is worth it. Okay, I'm not paid by Mario Puzo I'm
Are
not
you
like
sure? I mean, it
affiliated
sounds
or
like it.
something. Oh man, yeah, that's well, speaking of like age and like puberty, okay, that's the worst transition ever. But Alex, I heard that your channel is having like a puberty, like it's resurrecting again, isn't it? I mean,
Oh yeah.
we were talking about short attention span, and
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
you are doing people a little favor who might not have the time to listen to the full 2 hour podcast. Alex,
Yes. You
what is
see.
happening? What is happening at your channel right now?
Yes, because even though I don't like this environment we live in, a man needs to adapt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I totally understand that people not specifically choose this lifestyle, but they are born into it. So this is why I decided to take snippets out of our Red Smoke podcast,
Mm.
like short clips, a few minutes, specific topics, and make them into smaller video clips you can watch on my channel, which also relates to the Red Smoke channel, obviously. So yeah, to get people into the idea of what we are talking about without having to skim through the 2 hour like podcasts. And I think this is great to give you guys an idea of what these episodes are about, and then you can dive deeper into the long form version if you like the topic we talked about there.
It's more like a funnel, right?
Yes, pretty much.
That's-
Yeah, it's a teaser to get
Yeah,
people
yeah.
to understand what it's about, what this episode is, what we are talking about, what the guests are talking about, etc. And then if you enjoy it, you can dive deeper.
Absolutely, and also you do some video essays as well. There's actually a very popular one, I would say, like the one with Troy, where masculinity dies. Actually,
Oh, yes.
actually very very good. I think that's my favorite one because I kind of forgot about the movie at all, and then I was watching your video essay, and I was like, oh, maybe I should rewatch that movie now. It's really good.
Yeah, maybe we should talk about Troy at some point as well on the
I
podcast.
believe that is inevitable. Yeah.
Yes, because that. I mean, I even made a video essay about it because I think it has very, very many great scenes what true masculinity really is.
Yes.
And the video you mentioned blew up recently on my channel, out of nowhere, really. YouTube suddenly sent some traffic that way. But it's still, I think I made this movie a year ago, that clip. And when I really enjoyed Troy again for like the 15th time, even though it's again a 3 hour movie, there's a pattern there, I guess. And yeah, these video essays, I will do more of them, some shorter, some longer, but definitely, going over movies and the general idea that I think is behind it. Pretty much what we do as well on the Red Smoke podcast, just a bit shorter for your guys' short attention spans.
Absolutely. Alex, I would suggest you just put a little comment on this video with your channel account, and then people can find you easily as well. They can find you over Twitter. The links are, of course, in the description. So that would be easy.
Yes. It's very easy to find me. It's self-conquering virtually everywhere. On Twitter or on YouTube or Instagram, it's always the same name. Nobody came up with that before, apparently, so I have the handles saved.
That's actually pretty cool. You have the @self-conquering basically everywhere. And
Yes, exactly.
And I was like a little bit surprised because that's such... I wouldn't say it's a common name, but yeah, just like you said, no one came up with that before.
Yeah,
So
I
nice.
was surprised
Yeah,
myself
yeah.
when I bought the domain, selfconquering.com, because domains are always hard to get because virtually everyone has them
Yes,
and they
they
are
are.
traded. So I thought, yeah, let's just look at it. And I was very surprised that it was free to get, and all the other handles as well.
Well, let's hope that the next car or something is called self-conquering. You can sell this stuff for a lot of money.
Yeah.
All right, Alex, I think we can tune out for today.
Yes.
Day slowly starts outside.
Yeah.
And,
Getting brighter.
Absolutely. All right. Alex, say goodbye to the audience.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. We'll be back next.
No, I mean, I'm not gonna do that short thing again.
I don't know. I don't know why goodbye thing is always like a little bit cringy, but yeah, I'm gonna do that officially. See you next week. See you next week, everybody. Bye bye.